Welcome to Take 5 for Torah. Today is July 28th. It's the 3rd of Av, and it's Monday. So on Monday we talk about something that happened this week in Jewish history. And of course, the week before Tisha B'Av, we're always thinking of all the tragedies that took place in the first 9 days of Av, especially historically the return of the scouts from their disastrous trip to Israel that lasted 40 days, and they returned, according to the Gemara, on the 8th of Av and gave their horrible report, and there was an outcry. The crying took place on the 9th of Av. They went on the 10th of Av into Israel and were destroyed, massacred by the Canaanites, even though God told them that He's not with them. They insisted on going. It's ironic that when it was time to go, they didn't want to, and God said you shouldn't go. That's when they wanted to. Go figure. So these are the tragic dates from the time of the Torah, and of course, you move later in history and you have both temples being destroyed on this day, and the 9th of Av certainly is a date, an ignominious date in our entire history. That's the date of the Spanish expulsion. That's the date of the beginning of World War I. That's the date of the awful Wannsee conference that determined that the Jewish problem, so to say, in Europe would result in genocide. So many things, and I can go on and on, of course. And but what I'd like to do here is actually to discuss the week before Tisha B'Av in terms of the time where the Beis Hamikdash stood, because it says in the Seder Olam that on the 3rd of Av, Ezra in the year 3414 called together all the Jews to start donating the money that would be necessary to rebuild the temple. This took place on the 3rd of Av, and on this very same day, 13 years later, in 3427, Nehemiah started rebuilding the walls around Yerushalayim. So while already by that time, certainly the 9th, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th of Av, the Gemara tells us, were already ignominious dates in our history, but we started to turn things around, just like the prophecy of Zechariah, that these awful dates in Tammuz and in Av and in Tishrei, Tzom Gedalia, and in Teves, the 10th of Teves, where the siege on Jerusalem was laid, and these dates would be turned into joyful dates. So this already is the case from the 3rd of Av. And let me go one step further, because the Seder Olam says that the 5th of Av and the 7th of Av were glorious days of donations of wood to the Beis Hamikdash. We have to be careful, because the donation period for wood, for the significant amount of wood that is needed for the outward Mizbeach. There are different opinions in the Gemara in Maseches Zvachim and Maseches Yuma about how many pyres they had, as few as 2 and as many as 5 on Yom Kippur, according to different opinions. But there was huge pyres requiring a significant amount of wood. I might add, just parenthetically, that Israel is the only country on planet Earth that had more trees in the year 2000 than in the year 1900. We needed a lot of wood for the Beis Hamikdash, but God always blessed the land of Israel to produce so much more, and it was extremely sustainable to have so much wood because of God's blessings. So the 5th and the 7th of Av were Zman Atzei Korban, 2 special times of donating wood for the Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, we see that the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. Of course, the 1st of Av is a Torah holiday. It's called Rosh Chodesh. The 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th of Av are important dates in the history of the built Beis Hamikdash. But of course, we concentrate more at this time of year with our scraggly beards and the weddings that don't take place and the engagement parties that don't take place and other things that we avoid doing at this time of year, until Be'ezras Hashem, that glorious time where Zechariah's prophecy will indeed take place, where these dates will return and be turned into joyful dates, just as happened on that 3rd, 5th, and 7th of Av so long ago.